we're back at it again with the fucking podcast that isn't a podcast, so we don't know what the name of the podcast is. That's why I haven't uploaded to Spotify, because I haven't named the podcast. And we're just gonna yap it up for a bit because it's been kind of cut and dry lately, I feel like, in CS.
Chat, cool we do need your help for this name, because we definitely need a Twitter feed. We probably need a TikTok because we're so beautiful, and TikTok is going to love our faces. And we need a name so we can put it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all the other shit. So this is what chat is for. This is what you guys are needed to do. Crowdsourcing good ideas. I know chat always has great ideas. Chat can never let you down with the amount of just fascinating things they could think of. So definitely you could DM me or Flom. Flom won't read his DMs. I will usually not read my DMs either.
You can't even hit my DMs. Yeah, don't even try.
Okay. You can reach out. You can still reach out to Ryan for a gun buddy and for passes in CS, but you can hit up me for ideas for podcast name.
Perfect.
We need
low budget
podcast.
Counter-Strike podcast.
Yeah, I don't know how long Not a Podcast is going to.
No, that's it.
Is going to hold up.
Low budget Counter-Strike podcast.
But with Sicko, it is high budget, unless you think that Sicko and Chez are not high budget. Are you saying that your main editors and producers aren't high budget, huh?
Sicko gets paid whether we run a podcast or not, so it doesn't really work.
Oh, okay.
That's how high budget he is. We're fucked either way. Yeah, well, Chez isn't here, is he? It's not my fault. Chez decided to live on a fucking island where he has to drive an hour to his grandma's basement. Okay, I didn't make him do that.
Where is he?
He's on. I'm not doxing him. He lives in a small part of a place.
An island? I mean, that could be many different things. Okay.
He lives on one of the Canadian islands that everybody knows about, where he has to drive 30 minutes to his grandmother's basement to get fiber.
No, he's off in Hawaii on the beach all day. That's what he's actually doing. He just told you.
Can't even go to the beach. He's fucking balding on the top of his head. He'd come back looking like Rudolph in reverse.
Hey, bald guys need love too. Okay, it'll happen to us eventually. Hopefully not, though. It's the only thing keeping me sane.
For yourself, my shit's fine.
No, I'm doing fine.
Yeah, you're doing good.
The problem is that I've been, because I've had long hair, and every time I tie my hair back, my hairline gets further. So my forehead is like right in your face all the time because I keep pulling my hair back. And I also have an indent on top of my head. So
that's because you're a gamer.
Yeah, I am a true gamer. But I gotta take care of that. All right. My hair is the only thing that's keeping me sane. So as you were talking about, earlier, we've discussed this many times on the last couple podcasts about who would be considered the best team in the world, and we've thrown out a couple names. I think now we can definitively say Na'Vi is the best team right now. You already went further. You were already like, it doesn't even matter if they win the major, they're the best team of the year. Now, I don't want to go that far yet. We also have the Blast World Finals too. I think there is an opportunity if a team, maybe let's say a Vitality, were to win both the Blast and the major, that would probably overtake what Na'Vi has done for the year. But for right now, Na'Vi is the best team.
Nah, it's still good to Na'Vi, because you're forgetting the other aspect, which is it does. I know it's not fun. It's not a fun storyline. And also, I can hear myself back through your mic a little bit, so maybe push to talk for this one today. Just set it up real quick. But
okay.
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Let's just say Vitality, which this is lofty, is gonna win both. All right, we'll just say you're right. Na'Vi was still in every final. They were still in every single final in 2024, basically. I mean, I know not literally everyone, but they were in the majority of finals. So you basically either Na'Vi won the event or you had to beat Na'Vi to do it. They're the best team in 2024. They've already, yes, I think it's not as fun to say that, because saying that right now when we got two more events to go through is like, oh, that's kind of, no, but it is true. Like it is, they are the best team in 2024.
I think it's really hard to say that when there was actually an opportunity for MOUZ to win the Grand Slam. And I think if you asked 100 people in Counter-Strike, like what team would have the best chance of winning the Grand Slam, if you were just like thinking about the million tournaments that are going on, MOUZ would not be the answer. It would either be Na'Vi or it would either be Vitality. Some people would pick Spirit. Some people would pick G2. MOUZ has been consistent for the year, which is why they were in that position.
I'm sorry. One of the tournaments, so part of the Grand Slam was in 2023. So if we're strictly talking about this year, that's still out again too. So no, I'm sorry, bro. It's I
just feel like with how much FaZe dominated the very beginning of the year, and they've fallen off a lot. And I do want to talk about like what could be their issue. And then you have the consistency in MOUZ, and you had some peaks with Spirit and Vitality and G2. I think it is way too early to say who the best team of the world is when we still have both the Major and the Blast World Final. I really think if you have Vitality is probably the best option of the rest of the teams, where if they were to win both, that would get them over the hump. Like, I feel like they're really the only option. Like, G2 played so poorly here. If they win both, it's probably still Na'Vi. Spirit has had a bunch of problems where if they win both, it's still probably Na'Vi. But I think that Vitality is in that unique spot. If they were able to win both, or maybe even just win the Major and get to the grand final at the Blast Final, and then Na'Vi has... I mean, it doesn't look like Na'Vi is slowing down anytime soon. And there's even an argument to be made that we still haven't seen the peak of their performance. Like, they could actually still get better later on.
Yeah, we're still early on in the project. Like, it's
like that's a very good possibility. Na'Vi could get even better, and they could just steamroll all through the Major and the World Final. But I really think if Vitality were to get their shit together, and I'm really not on that train, I feel like there's some major issues going on there, especially in these last two tournaments, most notably with the way that Apex is calling and performing in these games. But if Vitality were to get there, they would definitely be in the conversation. I still think it's too early to say. Na'Vi is the betting favorite by far for the best team of the year, but it's still tight. Team.
Even in your fucked up world, that isn't going to happen. It's. I'm sorry. I'm not even jumping the gun. We got like a month and a half left here. Like, it's fine.
Yeah, we got Thunder pick 2, which I don't really consider a tier 1 event, but it is. I guess just based on prize money.
What are you trying to get a sponsor?
World.
What is this?
There is a world where Vitality can sweep the end of the year, and I think that gives them enough.
Nope.
I mean, especially if they got Cologne too.
No. Cologne.
Okay.
Cologne World Final and Major is definitely, you were great, but if you're looking at the two resumes, it's still Na'Vi. It's
still pretty close. Na'Vi had the edge.
It's still Na'Vi, and I don't think Vitality is going to do that either way. So,
okay, would FaZe possibly be in that conversation? They've just played so poorly over the last what feels like 4 to 5 months that they've fallen so far, but they had such a good start to the year that maybe if they were to bring it together and somehow pull off a major victory, that they could get back in that conversation.
I'm literally pulling up their match page because it feels like it's been so long since they've been good.
It really has been so long. It has been so long.
I don't think FaZe can really be in there either. They didn't. I mean, it was basically just Chengdu, right? For this year. Unless I'm missing. What was there is? Yeah.
No, yeah. It is really.
Yeah.
I mean, they got to the finals of Copenhagen and Katowice. But yeah, after that, it's been pretty downhill. It's been pretty downhill ever since.
Yeah, I appreciate you going to bat for Vitality, but yeah, this is,
we gotta have a little bit of suspense as we end the year.
Yeah, but we don't need to fabricate shit, Slasher. We don't make shit up here. We'll let other people do that.
I'm not making shit up. I really think we obviously put the emphasis on the two majors above every other tournament for the year.
Yeah.
And the Blast World Final should still be above all the other Blast events. I don't really know if we consider the Blast World Final as prestigious as Cologne or even Katowice.
No.
Probably not, just given the historical context. But in terms of the way that is the final event of that major circuit, you would think it would be as important.
Yeah, but
it should be as important.
The problem for them though too is like the problem now, and this is a good thing, is World Final is before the major, which is good and bad. It's good because we're ending with the major. It's bad because a lot of these teams are going to be looking past this event. Like, I think teams are going to show up and they're going to want to win here. And I don't think anybody's going to just like, not like practice, you know what I mean? But everybody that's going to be playing in the World Final is going to be thinking about the major. That's going to be starting right after that. Everybody wants to win it. Everybody's there to get theirs. But this is the downside for Blast of having pushed their World Final to before the major, which overall for Counter-Strike, I think is good, but bad for them because people are going to show up to this event and it's just going to be really the entire talking piece is going to be when a team gets knocked out, how do they look for the major? How do they look for the major? What does this mean for them going into the major? Or like that's going to be the entire discussion around that event. And I just think for Blast, it sucks. So it's also why I get what you mean. It is Blast premieres like big, it is their big send off for the year, and it should be their biggest tournament that has the most value and weight to the level of competition. And the teams that are in there are fantastic. We have Navi, G2, Vitality, Spirit, MOUZ, FaZe, Liquid, Astralis. Like, we actually have number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 17, but whatever. But I'm just saying that's a pretty stacked lineup. It's just the stepping stone to the major, though. That's the tricky part. It's going to be a great.
Also,
go ahead.
I really hope this continues for future years. Having any of the big events after the second major of the year feels like a really big missed opportunity. And it also just fucks up the entire narrative. The players want to take time off. They don't want to
it's just
continue playing matches.
No. If this were, I mean, just to cut you off, sorry, but if this were after the major and these were the same teams, probably 4 of these teams would have dead teams and roster changes pending and just showing up and trying to pug it out, basically. Like, basically whoever doesn't have a great performance at the major, with the exception of Navi, I think everybody's looming roster changes. There's looming roster changes for G2, even though they just made him. There's talks of Jimmy to Vitality. Spirit, I feel like at some point has to make changes. MOUZ losing Jimmy to Vitality would force roster changes. FaZe, we don't really know what's going on there. Liquid, it's going to be an absolute, that's going to be a clown car. Astralis is a clown car. So if this were, just hypothetically, if this actually were still after the major too for Blast, like, God, that'd be awful because all these teams, you just be rumors galore. Everybody's showing up with a half dead team. And it's like, all right, let's scrape it together for one event, one last hurrah. And that's just the whole event.
This needs to continue on for future years.
Yeah, no, for 100%.
The second major has to be the final event of the year.
Absolutely, yeah.
I don't know if Valve. I don't believe that part was instructed in Valve's the way that Valve is setting up. I think it was requested by
players mostly. I think players actually were pushing for this. I think even Blast knows that this makes sense. Even with Blast being the stepping stone to the major this year, it's still better than having dead teams show up to your event. So I think for everybody involved, this is just better. I think it's just. There's no counter argument. There's no, this is the way it should be.
Yeah, I agree. So you really feel that, as I do, just watching this event, we were, talking earlier about who's going to be the MVP. I thought, IM had a great, reason to be MVP. Wonderful. Could have gotten it. Bit had a great point to be it, ends up being JL, which I believe it was.
No, Emma got it. Emma got it from HLTV.
Emma didn't. Oh, Emma did get it. Okay,
I'll
okay,
double check
okay,
right
okay.
now. But Emma got it from HLTV, I think. Trying to find it. Sorry, you gotta go to. Chat, anybody got it? Hold on, let me. Chat, anybody got the link real quick?
Because I know JL is the fan favorite and all.
Yeah. No, the fan favorites always win DHL pretty much.
But I mean, just having to debate and argue over 3 potential MVPs, and you could have picked any of the 3, and they all would have been the right answer, really just shows like how good of a team they are right now. And like, as we were talking earlier, do you really think that they could get even better? Like, this is not seem like they're the final form of Navi. Like, they even have another level that they could hit going into the end of the year. Do you think so?
Yeah, because I mean, even the player, usually players avoid talking about it too. Not like that they try to fully like hide it necessarily, but I feel like players don't come out in interviews and say like, we're kind of tired right now. It's not super normal until the very end of the year. So hearing Navi kind of like admit to it, I think actually helps them too, because just like sometimes when everybody knows the problem, but you don't acknowledge it, just like becomes a bigger thing than it needs to be. I think Navi can absolutely play better. Yeah, I mean, I think as corny as this sounds, I think every game where Bit just has better English, the team just naturally gets better. Like, I mean, hearing a Bit interview now is crazy to me, considering to where we were before. And with how intelligent of a player Bit is, the more he's comfortable communicating in English, that team will actually just get better. Like, that's just on like a micro level of me talking about one player and their level of English, I could see them immediately improve even more. But in terms of burnout, yeah, I think first world problems, this is what happens when you make every final and you're winning most of them and you're in all of them. That means you're staying at tournaments longer. That means your time to travel to the next event is more immediate. When you start your next event, it's just continuous. It's like one long, it probably just feels like they can't even remember where they last were if you ask them, type thing. So I think Navi will absolutely be better and can be better. And I also think that they've managed this really well. Like, you got to give props to the Navi organization as a whole. I think their team's ability to perform the way that they are with their players feeling like this really speaks to, once again, Blade, his management of the team and the players and the staff of Navi being able to like have them just still get it done, even like when they're in this form.
I mean, they seem to be only gelling more and more as each event goes on. You're probably right. As Bit's English continues to improve, then maybe they'll just be unstoppable by the time the major comes along. I really think that Aleksib also deserves so much credit for coming into this roster at the very beginning. I would say there was a lot of doubts that this roster was going to succeed. Let alone simple not playing on the team, but just the agglomeration of not having a Ukrainian Russian dominant roster, going majorly international, bringing in players that don't exactly have as much star power like JL and IEM. And Aleksib also, if you look back at his career, he was stuck in purgatory essentially for 3 years between NIP, OG, a very short stint with G2, and then his time on ENCE. Like, he has come so far. He really was like at the bottom of his career during this time, where people didn't think that he had what it takes to continue being a tier 1 IGL. And now he comes into Navi onto a roster that many people did not believe in. And they did not believe in his calling, his ability to lead. And they are now definitively the best team in the world. And as much as Blade gets credit for his coaching and keeping the team calm and being able to, really rally around him, Aleksib really deserves a lot of that for what he's been able to do so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think Aleksib was just always, I don't know, man. Yeah, he just always got the shit end of the stick. He got kicked from ENCE, and then, he goes to OG, it becomes his project, and then he starts building it over time, and it feels like they were really building something there. But then I think that's when he got his opportunity on G2. Also, muted up Slasher real quick. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. It's just but yeah, basically,
Sorry,
so
baby.
he went, no, you're fine. He went from OG to G2, and it felt like that was like, all right, he's gonna do his thing. Like, this is where Aleksib, like, we all know how good he is. There was a worry about clash of style, but I was really, when you look back on it, that could have gone really poorly. I mean, it should have. It really looked like it was going to. He was not the problem at G2. They went to finals and they lost, and that's where his horrendous BO5 record comes from. That's a giant meme every time he plays one now. And when he got removed from G2, it just kind of felt like, well, now what for him? Because, there just wasn't really many places for him to end up. And then he ended up on NIP, which, oh my God, that is just not where you want to be. Like, that's just not it. Being on NIP, a part of that organization, that roster was an absolute clown car, and he got a little bit out of it, but it just really seemed like it was just, I don't know. I mean, being blunt, it really seemed like his career was just done. Like, maybe not fully done, but you know what I mean? Like in tier 1, or like being on a name where we expect him to be making runs, and not blaming him. That's just what it felt like outside looking in. And then Blade. And then Blade's like, that's my IGL right there for my international project that nobody has any faith in. Also, I'm going to go get M, who just had a good major. I'm going to go get JL, who's this role player for Apex. Also, my star opera and the GOAT of CSGO is going to stop playing, and we're just going to sign Wonderful. This roster hasn't even been around for like a year yet. It's just, I don't know, man. When you think of the whole Navi roster as a whole, it's actually, it does not feel like a real like situation. When you really think about where it started, it just doesn't feel real.
Now, I got 2 questions for you, coming out of this. A, do you think that a team like G2 now regrets how they treated Aleksib, considering their turnstile of IGLs and trying to fix this roster on that end? And 2, do you think Simple watching this at home, of course he's going to get the bag by Falcons, as we have discussed before, and that's going to make him happy. Do you think he, A, is feeling great that his team is winning championships, and he, his good friend Blade, and seeing, Wonderful and the Navi organization, who he has a lot of love for, or B, he is secretly internally seething to see his team actually play better without him and go on to be the best team, and now he has to work all the way back up, joining an org like Falcons, which him joining Falcons is not going to fix that team. Even bringing in Nico along with him, there's no guarantee that them two together is going to be able to fix that team. So he has so far to go to even get into the top range of teams right now, let alone to the level that Navi is right now.
With G2, I think G2 probably feels kind of dumb when it comes to Aleksib, but also it's like they've gone through the carousel of IGLs. They have nobody to blame but themselves. And I mean, they never even won a single event until Hooksy was there. Like, at the end of the day, IGLs are not the problem there. The problem is the IGLs they bring there never have, I think, real authority within the roster. And this isn't, see, this is where I think people kind of get a little mixed up, is they blame Nico for this. But really, I blame the G2 management for this. They are so, I think that the problem is like, they don't want to give the authority to the IGL because it's kind of like Nico, that they don't ever properly set up their IGLs that go in there to have any sort of real longevity, success. I mean, stability in terms of just knowing that they're going to stay there. At this point, like, if you go to G2 as an international IGL, you got to know that your days are numbered. Like, all right, 6 months, maybe a year, we'll get a new one after that, see who's on the come up, and we'll swap you out then. So I don't know. It just kind of feels like history repeating itself with G2. I think G2 might regret a few moves they've made in the past, not just Aleksib. But you know what? G2 did make one move, right? And that was getting MOUZ. So that's good for them. And they're benefiting from that still. Maybe not this event at Rio, but and then
probably the last great move that Carlos has ever made.
And I'm not going to touch that anyway. Well, so Falcons, I mean, and with Simple, I think Simple, it's probably both. I mean, Simple, I've talked about it in like previous times we've yapped where talking about the Falcons move in general. Not only is it that Falcons are the only ones that have the money for him to move, it's just like Simple doesn't really want to go anywhere else. I think that's where he's always wanted to play. That is the org that Simple has wanted to be a part of and always played for and represent. So, and he's good friends with Bit. Obviously, has tons of respect for Blade. I don't think Simple is like upset that they're winning from that perspective, but yeah, like it always, as a human, it doesn't feel good, like from an ego perspective, to just see people do better without you in a competitive environment, especially when you were such a big part of their success before. I mean, that's just like, that just doesn't feel good. You're like, shit, like, then you're like, was I the problem? You know, all that, you know, all the voices start creeping in a little bit, I think. So I don't think he's seething or like really, you know, plotting or some shit, like how he's going to get his revenge on Navi. I think he is probably happy for the Oregon and his friends. But yeah, also a bit of him probably wants to get back in the server ASAP because he's just sitting here like, I got to prove to everybody this shit is like, you know, I gotta prove everybody how good I am again. And that might even fuel him. That could be really cool. That's a nice little bit of fuel in the tank for him to rev him up again, which would be sick. But I don't think he's like plotting against Navi or trying to go to Falcons to get back at him. I just think that at the end of the day, he probably it doesn't feel great from like an ego perspective to see them have success without him. And he wants to show everybody, you know, what he's capable of.
I hope this is all motivation. I think that is a great line for him to use this to get back in the swing of things and try to take that Falcons team, which is going to need a lot of help. Okay. The way that Nico played this weekend, maybe not the best. Looking forward towards Falcons. Actually cannot believe this is the lowest rated event of his entire career. It really just fascinating. And having Hunter also, I think it was Hunter's lowest rated event.
Yes. The cousins together. Yes, at the bottom.
The cousins are always on top or always on bottom together. So I really do hope that Simple takes this as motivation going forward. So look, Navi, best team in the world right now. As Flom says, best team of the year. Nothing is going to change that. Let's move on to the other grand finalists. I also retweet my tweet, Flom.
Okay.
I made a tweet for our little IEM Rio post game show because you didn't make one.
Bro, we're just ripping at stuff. Let me be, bro. All right, let's go.
You didn't make one.
MOUZ
Sports really had, I feel like, a golden opportunity in this series. It seems like that they had gotten over their LAN crowd jitters, that was not affecting them. But it really, when we got into that game 4, at the end, it really seemed like it came back. Like I felt like MOUZ had killed their demons during the tournament and the crowd was not affecting them. And as soon as it hit like 11-6 or 11-7 on Ancient, then you were like, well, maybe they still have it. But, you know, they had a great opportunity to really take Inferno because JL was not having a good game at all. He only had, I think 2 kills in the entire first half, 3 kills.
It was pretty brutal. As the CT Banana player, he was 0 impact and he was losing his duels out to Xerxin, and Xerxin was taking all the space all the time. Yeah, it was not good for JL to start.
I mean, so for Navi to like inch out that win, when, you know, that was a great opportunity for MOUZ to take map 1 and to set the tone for the rest of the series. And, you know, after Mirage with a 10-2 half on Ancient, everyone was thinking, we're going to a game 5. We're going to a game 5. We're getting all 5 maps. We thought it was going to be a sweep, and we thought it was going to be an incredibly boring grand final. But then we're all right. This is going to be a turnaround. This might be a reverse sweep. Navi's on the ropes. And then the MOUZ Sports final stage crowd hits, which might be due to you, Flom.
Oh yeah. Wait, what'd I do?
You patched in the crowd noise. You were the one that got MOUZ Sports flustered at the end because they knew that you were streaming and you were
the crowd loves the steak. There we go. I'm playing. You can't hear it, but yeah, true. No, okay. So I heard Yanko start saying this on the desk, and I'm hearing you say it. Also, perfect. Thank you. I think that's bullshit. I don't think you would just magically start. I mean, I'm sure. Okay, how do I say this right? I think that being on stage probably amplified the feeling a little bit, but I don't think it was necessarily their stage experience in this case of was really making the difference. I don't think it was a difference maker. I think it probably enhanced the feeling of them knowing the game was slipping through their fingertips. But we see leads like this blown all the time. I'm a Liquid fan. I'm well aware of people just blowing huge leads like this, even in a studio environment. And I know for MOUZ, the storyline's a little bit different, but I just don't think you go from defeating the raid boss of crowds with Furia, the way that they did. They've beaten G2, they've beaten Vitality. I think this was just them knowing they were letting the game slip, and it did. I think that pressure got to them. I don't know if I don't know if it's because they're on the stage that it got to them, or I just think Navi's a really good team, and if you don't put them away, and they knew that, you just start feeling the game slip. I don't really subscribe to the idea that crowd was doing something to MOUZ that was happening or wasn't happening previously, where they just all of a sudden lost every single round because of that crowd. I definitely don't subscribe to that. I think it maybe enhanced it a little bit. I think the bigger thing is as players, and JL described it on the desk, and the MOUZ players know this too, is 10-2 is a huge lead. All the pressure's on MOUZ to now close it versus the best team in the world to force map 5, okay? And they let the pistol rounds slip, and then they let couple more rounds slip, and all of a sudden they're just a few rounds away. You're just a couple rounds away from your money being broken again, to where this is a tie game. The players know this. The MR12, the games are so brutal and the games can flip so fast. I think that is what just makes some of these games really hard to close out for people, and why we see such one-sided runs sometimes on the comeback. So yeah, I don't subscribe to the fact that MOUZ for this specific matchup, this specific game, that the crowd overwhelmed them at the very last second, and that is why Navi made the comeback. No, I think they lost the comeback because they didn't put away the best team in the entire world, and that team is so good that they will make the comeback if you leave the door open, and that is what it came down to.
I mean, MOUZ has been a very consistent team, as we spoke about. This entire year, they had a really tough bracket. At this event, they beat Complexity in a best of 3. They beat Fury in a best of 3. They beat Vitality in a best of 3. They beat FaZe in a best of 3. So they had a tough road to get to the final. But just the way that it ended, and then, you've had reports that Jimmy is going to be joining Vitality after the end of the major. You had Banks thrown out a wild question in that post-loser interview. That was crazy. A lot of respect, Banks, for doing that.
I kind of felt bad for Jimmy, to be honest.
I did too. Do you think this event will be a motivator for MOUZ, that they are still one of the best teams in the world right now, top 5 team, and that they have a very good chance of taking either the major or the Blast World final? Or is it now seeping into their head, especially as Jimmy looks like to be their best player and kind of their internal leader, that he's going to leave inevitably soon, and that there might be doubt now creeping into the team that they can't quite get over the hump, even though they are looking really good?
Yeah, I don't know. The tricky part of this equation is, one, there's a rumor fucking floating around that Apex to Falcons potentially. There was that floated around for a second. I'm pretty sure Falcons is just making the rounds again at this point. And it's just okay, who do we like at every position the most? Okay, They should just buy out 10 or 15 players and just to kill the other teams so they can't sign anybody. Just buy a team and then put them on the bench.
I mean, why not? They can afford it. They could do it.
That's actually crazy work. True. Just simply buy out the organization and then just put the players on your team.
Yeah, it's the EG method, except they'll probably have would have better results.
Yeah. I mean, any results, but anyway, that's one of those questions where if I'm Jimmy and I have an offer from Vitality and I'm with MOUZ, I don't know. Can you really turn down the opportunity to play with one of the best players in the game right now? And Zyru's still young too. It's not like he's like, like I know he's been around forever at this point, but he's still got so much left in his career. You don't have to worry about like a Nico situation is what I'm saying, where Nico might be like, oh, Falcons got to go. But I just feel like the roster shuffle is so large after this major, partially because they've changed the schedule to where now the major is the last tournament of the year. All these roster moves are going to just like a shotgun happen all at once. And I just don't know, because I feel like Jimmy or whoever is going to know his 5 for Vitality. And that probably plays a big part of it. What if Apex is actually not a part of that equation? Like, I mean, I don't think this will happen, but what if fucking Zyru somehow is not a part of that? Like, we don't know anything about the larger scope of the players right now. I think if we're just like strictly talking about Jimmy going to Vitality for probably Mezzi, and sticking around on MOUZ, I don't know, man. I don't know, what do you do? Because it's not like Vitality is so dominant that they're winning everything. But if you're Jimmy, maybe you're the difference maker. I don't feel like Vitality loses tournaments right now because of Mezzi. I think that's a load of shit. I think he gets the most flack on the team.
No, they're losing because of Apex.
Well, sometimes, yeah. Sometimes, yeah. But other times is because Sphinx and Flames both don't actually make real impact in the server either.
Yeah,
and
true.
I don't know if Jimmy like really solves that. I mean, he'll help contribute more, so maybe it covers that. I just don't know if like Jimmy to Vitality immediately makes them into like some roster that's untouchable. I don't know. I actually have no clue what Jimmy. I can't predict that. I have no idea. Because it's like basically the power of friendship, as everybody like to make a joke about with MOUZ on the stage. I mean, they are all very good friends. So I have no idea. I think he probably would go if everybody in Vitality stays. But only if God, but what if they do good at the major or world final? I think that's why Jimmy didn't really want to answer the question one way or the other either, because he just doesn't know. I bet he has no clue. It's gonna see where like how global final or the world finals go and the major goes, and that'll probably heavily impact his decision. That would be my guess.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it is kind of sad to see. MOUZ Sports is a very, very old esports organization. They were one of the most legendary German Counter-Strike 1.6 teams for a very long time. They do not have the resources that a Vitality or a FaZe or a G2 or especially a Falcons do to acquire players. So seeing this roster and this organization get to where they are again after, like the Chris J years has been really cool. But it feels like if they're not going to be able to just keep their star players because of the amount of money that other teams are going to be throwing out there,
well, I don't know if Vitality is going to be that. I don't think Vitality's cheap, and I think that they are bigger than MOUZ when it comes to probably the salary discussion. I just don't know if it's like that much of a like. I don't think Jimmy's seeing like basically he's getting it'd be like a 20% increase at most. I feel like. At most. And I'm not saying that's minimal, but if on the flip side of that, like you feel like you're just like ditching your friends or you don't even maybe have full confidence that you're going to win events. I just don't know if that's like enough. Vitality is, I think, a bit more cutthroat as well when it comes to negotiations. You got to think about that too as a player. Vitality dropped Dupree after he won the major with them. Like, as soon as Vitality sees an opportunity where they can make an upgrade, and I have a lot of respect for an org, but from a player perspective, you got to keep that in mind too. Like, you could be walking into a place where, what if Jimmy doesn't find Form? Like, you got to, how long are they going to wait on you to find Form? Will they, like, they're just very cutthroat in general. So that might play a part into what he's thinking as well.
Yeah, I mean, let's move on to Vitality. These last three events have been pretty disappointing, at least for me watching them. They've gotten to the semifinals the previous two, and they got 5th to 6th here, which, considering the scope of the event and the teams attending, is pretty good. But the expectations are so high, and I believe Zilu again was the statistical best player of the tournament.
Yes,
this time, and that's every single event. Okay, maybe Donk here and there has been able to claim that crown, but Ziwu, the air quality is still really good. Okay, the cultural impact is still really high. To me, they are the most disappointing team lately in terms of the expectations that they are. Their star player is performing to where he should be, but the rest of the team, as you mentioned, Flames and Spinks are not they're not playing up to where they should. But for me, a lot of it is Apex and his strange moves in the game himself. It feels like he'll be frustrated with his team not doing something, and then he'll run through a smoke solo and go die. And you're like, well, what did you want your team to do there
Apex round
to help you?
Yeah.
It feels like there's too many of the Apex rounds that are happening when if he's done such a great job. He was the IGL of the year last year, right? Like, we know what he's capable of in terms of rallying his team around him and his calls for what he wants to do and his emotions to be able to lead them. But it feels like this is what could happen on the other side if things are breaking down and they're not working.
So let me just put in perspective, if people end up listening to this and they don't know all the results. So Vitality won alone, and then, expectations kind of skyrocketed from there, which is what Slash was talking about. And then immediately they go to Pro League and they lost, I believe, in quarters or semis. Let me look. They lost in quarters, and I'm going to kind of build a narrative here for a second. They lost to Eternal Fire, who ended up making the run all the way to, well, not all the way, but it was quarters. But they lost to somebody who went all the way to the final. EF played really well in the finals as well, versus Navi. So they didn't lose to like some slouch, I would say. I think that's a disappointing result from Vitality. But once again, so you lost the team that went to the finals. Then they lost to G2 in the semifinal before G2 won Blast. And then the two losses in Rio were to Heroic and to MOUZ. And the loss to Heroic looked bad up until I saw Heroic shock the shit out of me with their level in playoffs. And I just wanted to add that context because I agree with you. I think the expectations of Vitality were sky high after Cologne. I was riding the bandwagon all the way. I was glazing the shit out of Apex, and things were looking really good for them. And to kind of go back to my glazing of Apex and to defend him for a second, I still think that the reason he does this, and this isn't to justify it, I'm trying to explain why I think it happens. I think it's because he doesn't get enough out of Flames and Spinks for whatever reason. I don't know if that's his calling problem or if that's a individual level and they don't do as much in high pressure moments, or if it's like coaching or if it's philosophy. I think he feels like he needs to do that stuff to make up for whatever they're losing. And I still think that falls on him because I feel like that they should be getting more out of Flames and Spinks. Like, this is specifically Flames. I think that's where you want Flames cracking open a bomb site as much as possible for you because that's where he thrives, man. So it looks weird as hell because when it starts collapsing, you see Apex run through a smoke where he's basically just throwing his body through a smoke and hoping to God that somebody trades him, and that's how they win the round. And then you see the follow-up round. You'll watch Spinks walk through a smoke trying to make an individual play. You'll see Flames do the same. It just starts to dissolve very quickly at times, and I think that is on him. But but I think that it stems from a place where for whatever they're doing inside that team, I feel like they don't get enough out of Spinks and Flames on a consistent basis that creates this dilemma. Like it could be calling, it could be their maybe Flames and Spinks don't like just during playoffs. I haven't watched it to that level. Like I'm not sitting there staring at Flames and knowing all of his tendencies and knowing he is or isn't maybe going for like this little set play or taking the same amount of space that he normally does. I'm not going to pretend that I am. That's like, I'd have to go through a demo and like really get down into it to see that. But I think that's where it is. I think ZywOo's always doing ZywOo things, and he's not the star player that's going to force a game. He's not going to go and try to force the win. That's what makes him, that's why you can criticize him, but that's also what makes him so good. It's why he tops every single event, because he's going to play his way and he's going to get the most out of himself that he knows he can. And then something happens with Flames and Spinks where I feel like they have such high levels, and then they, at times, one of them just doesn't fire. And I think Mezzy is kind of just there sometimes. And on CT sides, he looks great, but on T side, he always just kind of feels like a placeholder. And then Apex just seems like he's like, oh, well, shit, I don't know what to do. Time to just run through this smoke. And I hope to God we're traded. We get into this B bomb site and ZywOo can win me a post plant. And, that's not good. And it's hard to know exactly where that's starting, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I yapped way too much about it. Holy fuck.
Yeah, no, it's just based on the expectations that we have all had for Vitality, since their win at Cologne. They look like, maybe the best team. They were maybe better than Na'Vi, and they'd be able to keep that momentum at the next events, and they just haven't been able to keep up that form. So I think the other options are they're going to turn it around for the Blast World Final and for the major. Or I think there's potential it even gets worse. I think maybe they even crumble further and there's more contention within the team. It feels like they are a very emotional team, riding off of Apex based on how he's feeling at any given moment.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's just Apex. I mean, the whole rumor was that Spinks wasn't happy and wanted to leave and wasn't happy, I think, specifically with Mezzy. Like a lot of the pressure was on Mezzy and the focus was on him. And I think Cologne, as soon as they won, it's like, okay, well, that goes away, right? Because obviously now everybody's like, oh, yeah, we can win. Like, we are pretty good at this game. That's crazy. And then now that they're losing, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's like, okay, well, then people are just picking up right where they left off with potential things they're upset about or unhappy within the team. That bleeds into everything. And they're not gonna have Mezzy at World Final, I think. They're gonna have Jax, if I remember correctly. So, I mean, we'll get to see, I guess. That's going to be weird because Jax is going to have to... I mean, Jax and Mezzy just don't really... What Mezzy's doing right now for Vitality and what Jax... Actually, no, Jax anchors. He'll be fine. He'll be all right. But, yeah...
He'll accept his role.
I think Cologne masked some of the problems that we're building in Vitality and basically put them on pause. But now that they started losing again, I think you're right. It can get worse. I think those things will build again if they don't have some sort of success. And I think... Unfortunately for Vitality, I think the only level of success they are content with is winning the event. Every event they don't win just feels like a colossal failure, I think, for where their own expectations are right now. The good news for them, with having a stand-in for Blast, that's going to also put things on pause. They kind of get a little break from their own expectations until they start gearing up for the major again. But yeah, if they don't do well at the major, I think Vitality might seriously consider making some moves. Seems likely it'll be Mezzy for Jimmy or whoever. Maybe, who knows? FaZe is kind of a weird spot. What if they're like, yo, Rops, what's up? Like it could be that the roster moves after this major are going to be unbelievable. Like the Flom Clips and Highlights channel is going to be having a good time. I'm just going to be sitting there just reading shit for like 2 weeks straight. It's just going to be like banger after banger. And I'm like, oh my God.
That's when the React streamer comes out.
I mean, I'm always a React streamer, but yeah.
During roster moves, nothing better. Nothing better. So do you feel that this event was so bad for G2 and that Nico, as we mentioned, this is his worst event of all time? It was so bad that it's going to be easier to forget.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
We can just be, all right, this never happened. We didn't come close. It's not a big deal when we move on. It's not indicative of anything larger in the team.
Yeah, no, like that shit was so bad that it's like getting 13-0'd. When you get 13-0'd and you kind of just, I mean, you're not like happy, but you kind of just laugh it off. You know, it's like, well, what are you supposed to be? You can't be mad at rounds that you threw. You lost all of them. You know, like you can't, like, even if there were rounds that you threw, you didn't win a single fucking one anyway. So it's not like you were ever close. So it just kind of all washes away. When it is that bad, it is much easier to forget. I think the only thing where it might add to it is like Nico to Falcons thing just kind of looks funny when you see stuff like that. But yeah. I mean, really, it's kind of a nothing sandwich at the end of the day. They won Blast. They showed up to Rio. They look like absolute trash. If anything, it just shows what we all already knew, which is what we already knew is G2 can win any tournament and they can lose to anybody. And we got the exact screenshot of it. They won an event. Few days later, they are immediately out of an event. Like, that is G2 to its core. That is how they are built. That is how they are going to be. That is how they're going to win. That's how they're going to lose. And we just got both extremes of it very quickly. So it's all good. And that's pretty much it for G2. They just kind of look like shit. All good. See you in the next tournament.
Yeah, no, for sure. Doesn't seem like NACS is going anywhere anytime soon. I also think and feel like NACS and Taz are our combo. I don't think NACS would get kicked and Taz would still be the coach, or even vice versa. I feel like if either of them were to ever go or leave or be removed, it would be a package deal. Do you get the sense of that at all?
No, I could see him kicking NACS. I definitely think I think if Taz were to go, NACS is on the way out too. I would say it in that order, yes. But if they, no, I could see it.
NACS, Taz would stay.
Yeah, I could see that. It just kind of depends, though. I mean, depends on who else you'd want as coach. Like, what do they want? I don't think there's actually many better coaches for G2. Like, they don't try, you know, I mean, I really hate repeating myself with this shit, but G2 is not just, they're not going to build like Navi. They're not trying to do that. They're not trying to force you to think. They actually don't want you to think. They want you to be right where you want them to be and right where they should be, so they can force a fight and headshot you. Like, they're not trying to do too much. And Taz is a great cheerleader. And I'm not even trying to say that like the Reddit thing where everybody's like, oh, look, he doesn't know any tactics, he's stupid. No, I just think that that's what G2 needs. I don't think they wouldn't work well with the Blade. Like, they just wouldn't. I think Blade is the GOAT in terms of that. But yeah, I think certain personalities of coaches matches teams better. And I think Taz is a good fit for them. So
yeah, I think so too. I think that also in Counter-Strike, it feels like we are judging coaches too quickly, not giving them enough time to develop. I mean, Counter-Strike esports especially is not really good in patience, especially because there's so many events and there's so many tournaments that after maybe 3 months or so, there's not a lot of leeway that the fans or even the management themselves of these organizations want to give their coaches, or the players for that matter, to, you know, feel out the roster more and to try to improve their results. If you don't get results, especially within half a year, there pretty much automatically are going to be changes made. A lot of the time, it does make sense just because you have a lot more data in Counter-Strike
than you do
a lot of reps, in other esports. So I do understand that, but it feels like, you know, as we see with Aleksib, who had such an insane time going from team to team to team and not having any success, and now being part of the best team, leading the best team in the world, it shows that, like, you know, well, maybe if he had a little bit more time in this situation or G2, he could have turned things around. Maybe not, but I feel like, you know, Taz could easily be a good coach or a great coach, but we might not really
right now. I mean, if you want to go based off of a stat of, like, you know, win rate after a timeout, Taz was actually quite high at Pro League. He had a much higher win rate after a timeout than Blade. He had like twice his win rate. It was quite impressive. He had a good win rate, but I mean, that's a whatever metric, but it's just kind of funny to think about. I think that circumstances matter. I think that yes, time matters and can change things, and maybe we should let rosters cook more. But I think you missed one thing. You were absolutely right in everything that you said about the timeline and how quickly people move in the CS scene. But there's a reason for that, and that's not, you didn't get to the reason, which is the rankings. And with the partnerships going away, the rankings are going to matter even more. If you suck for 6+ months and you tanked your ranking, you're going to lose invites. So like, you know, especially now with the new system coming up, that's going to be even more extreme in terms of how quickly you need to be on the move. Essentially, if you start bombing at tournaments, not collecting points, and then losing invites, it's going to be really brutal. I think, and back to the Aleksib thing, I think just, sometimes you just need the right situation. You see it in traditional sports too. You know, how many quarterbacks suck at one spot and then they go to a different place and now they're great, right? I mean, look at Baker Mayfield. Look at, there's a bunch of circumstances.
Who are the Cleveland Browns of Counter-Strike? What is maybe the dumbest fucking team in all of Counter-Strike?
I guess EG, right?
Yeah.
I just don't even want to do that to EG because the Browns are still worse, like, actually, though. So moving on from that. I don't want to.
It's true.
Bros collecting fucking lawsuits like they're gym badges in Pokemon. Fucking A. But yeah, sometimes it's just a matter of circumstance and having the right people around you. It does. Sometimes you don't need more time. You just have to be somewhere else. But you also need to be lucky enough to hopefully have somebody take that chance on you and bring you back from the depths of NIP being cut, like Aleksib, and then you can. Also, who's to say if Aleksib doesn't make that journey that he made, he's the type of IGL that Navi needs right now. There's so many ifs, ands, and circumstances. The butterfly effect. It's like there's a lot of things that could go differently. I think most of the time, though, the biggest driving factor is, yes, it's fans. Yes, it's expectations. Yes, it's you don't want your team to lose. But at the end of the day, what's all driving that, whether people realize it or not, is the rankings. And the rankings matter so much, and they will matter even more in 2025.
The leash might get even shorter. So this issue might even be exacerbated as we go further because of the rankings issue. And if you don't make changes quick enough, then you will lose your rankings, but then that might mess up chemistry. That's not going to give enough time for teams to gel. I guess we'll have to see going into next year. Moving on to one of our favorite topics, as we do every single time we do this podcast, is the state of North American Counter-Strike. And by the way, for you fans out there for NACS, it's okay. Things are actually going pretty well. Over in League of Legends, okay, I gotta say, this might be the worst ever experience watching a North American or an American player play a video game, is watching the LCS teams try to win at the World Championship.
They're not even only NA players on the LCS teams.
I know. Well, FlyQuest, I believe, FlyQuest got in over Liquid. They have two. They do have two players, Bucio and MOUZ. Are there two North American players? The star players are Bwipo, Inspired, and Quad. Okay, it's not the American players, but they do at least have two. We do have one LCS team into the quarterfinals at Worlds. It is because we played the other LCS team in Team Liquid, and if we had any other matchup, we probably would not be in there at all. So things could be worse, North American Counter-Strike fans. We could be League of Legends. Okay, I feel like we should set that up as the
so that's the metric now, because the LCS has been horrible basically since inception.
Yes, but we've also been watching North American Counter-Strike, and we got a Grand
Slam and we got a major, but the LCS has quite literally never been good. Slasher, don't compare us to that.
It is true. We've never even gotten to a final at the World Championship, let alone win a World Championship. We're never going to. In League of Legends, it's pretty much like soccer, football. The USA will never win a World Cup. Ever. We will be dead before the USA ever gets into a semifinal of the World Cup.
So basically, because this is, so we should just all be really happy because we're just so horrendous everywhere else?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That is exactly my point. Thank you. We are so bad at everything else. Yes. Yes. That's pretty much where I am. Because I feel like, this event, you had a team kill to start the bracket. And then they ended up losing to Complexity ends up losing to MOUZ, which, you know, not a bad. I mean, the series was actually reasonably close, and the Liquid FaZe game not as close. That one was not as close. Does not make me feel really good at all about Team Liquid going forward. But it's almost like no different than how I felt at all anyway. Like, I feel like both those teams and MAD2 especially have been playing well recently, and it has been giving me good vibes. Looking forward to, like, you know, watching them here at Rio, thinking like they could do some damage. But them losing at the same time didn't feel out of the ordinary either. Like it was expected, even though they had been playing well before. So nothing has changed for me. Looking at both these teams, looking at North American Counter-Strike at all, I actually still am hopeful based on the last couple months. I'm still in the hopeful more than the doomer copium end of things.
I'm on the
did
doomer
anything
copium.
Change for you? You are in doomer. Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, it's just like my take all the time with this is like, bro, it's not even like I'm some fucking smart person. I've just seen the script repeat itself over and over and over and over again with star players becoming the IGL. And it's like, okay, things go pretty well. Wow, this looks pretty great. And you know what? Props off to Twist and Liquid. Ultimate was an absolute stunner, and I didn't see that one coming at all. Didn't see that part of the script coming. But now things are starting to slow down a little bit. People are starting to figure out Liquid a little bit. And I just feel like we're at that same point again, is Twist's individual output is now taking a huge hit. He is their best player on the team, and he's taking a huge hit. They're starting to run a little flat, it seems like, in terms of the ideas they can bring to the game that they're using against. Feels like everybody knows what Liquid wants to do right now. So I'm not fully doomer yet. I am not. I'm not at the point where I'm like, I've given up. I think this next like week and a half to 2 weeks leading into the major, I'm not. If the world final looks really bad, I might feel even worse. But really, it's like we got to see what they look like at the major. If they look like they finally got some form again at the major, and it looks like they just needed maybe a bit more time, because they made a lot of changes. Like, I understand that they made a lot of changes at the player break. They seem to have gotten a fair amount of stuff done, and they looked much better than we all expected, I think, right out of the bat or right off the gate. But it's also starting to feel like the same script that we always see with this scenario. And so glass half full, maybe this little bit of a break leading into world final and into the major can give them time to develop things that were maybe a bit figured out. Lets them figure out how they want to add more to their game. Because right now, I think people just know what they're doing. I think they've just kind of run the tank's empty on ideas for what they were able to come up with in a short time frame. So let's see what they can cook up now. If it goes poorly, I don't know what Liquid's going to do, because you're going to be in a situation where I firmly believe Twitch shouldn't be IGLing. But I'm also not on Liquid, and I'm just some dickhead that sits here and reacts to rosters. So it doesn't matter what the fuck I think, really. But I think it's going to be, you immediately have to have that conversation if the major and the world final, like, you don't see some sort of something going well, because you're just going to be like, that's where it has to start, because you need to answer that question, because the glaringly obvious choice for who you're going to move on from is Ykinder. And if you're going to move on from Ykinder, then you got to find a English-speaking space creator secondary IGL. Well, I know a really good one. He's currently IGLing Liquid. And so it's like, you got to figure out, okay, so then do you want to sign an IGL? Do you want to try to get somebody to replace Ykinder 1-1 and keep Twist as the IGL? How? And man, I just hope that they don't do that, because dude, Twist is so good still. He doesn't need the IGL right now, man. So it's not doom and gloom yet, but it's going to get real weird if they don't show some sort of result at the world final or at the major.
I gotta say, it did look like Twist was rattled in that FaZe match too. Just his body language and the emotions, like on his face on the cam, were not like really a positive reinforcement for an NACS fan. on top of like all the issues that you do mention of just like his rating has gone down since taking over IGL, he was hitting in great form.
Just like Device, just like Electronic. It's literally the same script. It is almost like on a month-to-month basis, if you look at the decline, it is actually fucking like cinema. They are the same. It's like the same scriptwriter woke up one day and wrote the same fucking thing each time for all three of them. And I'm just like, okay, well, that's why I'm pretty much on the Doomer train, is not even because of like twists. It's just I feel like I'm watching the same shit unfold over and over and over again. And it's really hard for me to not, it's just hard to be optimistic when I've just seen this so many times. He could be the exception, but so far it just seems like it's the norm, which is the problem.
Yeah, and out of the two, I mean, Complexity, considering they lost to MOUZ Sports, who ended up going to the final, and that series is actually pretty close, and they never seem to be able to beat Team Liquid in a head-to-head, it's probably less worrisome for them, would you say? Like, the issues between the two are definitely more concerning for Liquid than they are Complexity. Or do you feel like it's still both?
I think that the answer for Liquid is more complicated. I think that the answers for Complexity are kind of straightforward. It's just complicated because of where Jason Lake and the Complexity organization are and what their options are. They know what they have to like evaluate and what they have to do. They're probably going to have to drop Floppy or Grim at some point, unless something miraculous happens at the major, and to make a change. Like that is the brutally honest answer. Is that's what's going to have to happen. For Liquid, it's way more complicated than that. You have to figure out, does Twista want IGL? If Twista wants IGL, then do we have to start looking at a Kinder replacement? Like, is having JKS and NAF too much? Even though they both are great on the CT side, like having both these types of players that are very similar to one another, is this the right answer going forward? Is this the right formula? The Liquid, like Complexity just needs more consistent output on an individual level from Grim, Floppy, and Hulzerk, but Hulzerk had actually a good showing in Rio, and he has
he played
bigger
well.
flashes. But yeah, Liquid, it's just so fucking, it is a mess. Like if this doesn't work, it's just such a mess. Where Complexity has the benefit of having a really strong IGL, a really strong rifler, an opera that they're locked in with, quite frankly, and has his moments. And then you have two players that have shown that they're really good, but don't show it often enough. And you have to kind of pick which one you want to move on from there.
And you have I don't think it matters as much for the organization, it doesn't seem like, but the identity of the team, they've definitely lost a lot of I wouldn't say they've lost the NA fan base, but a lot of the fans identify a much more with the Complexity and lately M80 than they do with Team Liquid, just based on the roster of the team. There's no Americans on the team. It's definitely, I think, something that they should be thinking about going forward. Of course, they want the best player available and the best fit for the team, but not having Americans, especially on at least one on the organization, on the roster, will affect the fan culture and the fandom around the team, which I do think management, is weary and concerned of.
I don't care if it's an American, to be honest. It's more like since they don't have majority in NA. And then honestly, the biggest thing is like the glaring EU roster that happened. I basically fucking it's funny. I like almost always forget about it, but I feel like it also is what feels like this like, I don't really want to, doesn't feel the same anymore cheering for them. Like it doesn't hit quite the same, but I don't know. True. It's not because like if they only had, let's just say just like purely for nationality's sake, Elysian for NAF, I would still probably feel the same way, is my point. I don't think
one American is equal to at least 1.5 Canadian.
Oh my God. No, I don't think that's the difference. I just
currency
think, like I said,
and people.
The team doesn't really have.
This goes for players too.
They don't really have a region, right? And then
if we had two Americans,
European North Americans as well, like they like, so it's like it's just but no, I mean to me still. Bye. It's more like the EU roster still. Like it still just felt like such a fucking smack in the face to like people that were fans of the team. It was just like, what the fuck? It was so weird, and the results definitely didn't justify it. And now it's not that I like cheering for the team, but it's not quite the same. It just doesn't quite hit the same.
I'm just saying, if we had 2 American players instead of 2 Canadians, that would qualify as 3 NA players. But because it's 2 Canadians, it's still just 2 NA players.
Nah, see, I don't. Nah, if there's an American in for one of them, I wouldn't feel different.
But if we had 2 Americans, then we equal 3 NA.
It still wouldn't.
That's how the math goes.
Shut up.
I mean, honestly, the most promising team and the one that I'm at least a fan of is M80.
It's a fun project for sure. It's
a fun project. What they did at Pro League was incredible, and it really made a ton of fans around NA. It's really disappointing to see them not be able to win Atlanta or at least get into the finals. I don't think they should be losing to Wildcard on LAN. I personally think that was the Amaranth cultural impact in person. She was at the event. She was watching their team. M80 felt the aura around Amaranth, okay? And they were not able to perform as at their best. All right. They got a little bit worried, got a little bit scared. They couldn't get full throttle, fully erect. They couldn't quite push it home, you know? And of course, Atlanta is not a big event, but it was an opportunity for them to get a slot into Pro League, I believe, for next season.
It's not. I don't think it was Pro League. I think it was another event. Oh, it might, because I don't even know if Pro League is a thing anymore. Yeah,
FlyQuest gets into Pro League season 21
so it is that.
Because they won. Also, great stuff for FlyQuest.
That actually that was Alistair's best ever performance I've ever seen out of him. I am saying that because holy shit, I didn't even, in the most insulting and non-toxic way, I never knew he had that in him. I've never seen that level from him. I never even had a hint that he could do shit like that. And he popped the fuck off and he looked great. And he made the finals really entertaining. I watched all of it. Like, Alistair made that final what it was. It was actually a really good final. It was fun.
I believe that was the first title for Australia in 4.5 years.
Yeah, probably
first LAN win for Australia.
Renegades. Yeah, probably since Renegades. I mean, yeah, that's probably
it is great for their region. Like, they really needed a big win, even more than NACS did. You know, for everything that's happened to that roster and all the different organizations that they've gone to over time, it is really cool to see them at least win a DreamHack Challenger event. And hopefully they can maintain that going into the RMR.
Yeah, 100%.
In a couple of weeks.
I think M80 is looking good. I think, they're I imagine for them too, it was really disappointing, their result in Atlanta. I think that's actually maybe the most concerning part. Is I feel like they have a lot of good momentum. So the fact that they went to Atlanta with some expectations, then they failed to meet their expectations, could maybe slow them down a little bit. That's the bad thing. Like, honestly, their loss isolated on its own is kind of whatever. It's not good, but it's not the end of the world. That format is pretty, that tournament itself, I'm not saying it's not important. It is, and it would have been huge for their confidence to win it. But I also think it's one where they can kind of maybe move on to the next one and focus for the next, which I think for them will be the major. And if they can turn some heads at the major again, I think Atlanta will just be, a bad memory that is whatever. Like, it's just left in the past. I think, if anything, Wildcard impressed me by being able to perform the way that they did with the stand-in, considering they didn't have their number one player and their opper, and he had to get replaced. It seems like they're getting more and more like that event seemed really valuable for Wildcard going forward. I think JBA is still getting comfortable on LAN. You could tell both LAN events where I've watched JBA now, first couple games, he doesn't look physically uncomfortable, but in game it seems like he's not moving as quick or making reactions as quick. But by like the second game or by like the third game, or depending on the format, like the third map, it always feels like he's like, all right, I'm ready to play some Counter-Strike now. And hopefully that's that, learning phase or getting adjusted phase happens less or quicker, or however you want to phrase it. But wildcard, I think, could take some positives away, which is another good sign for like tier 2 North American Counter-Strike, which is good. Like we have M80, wildcard, nouns that are all going to be battling with each other on a consistent basis. Sucks that energy I can't really put in that conversation right now. I'm not even trying to be insulting to them. It's just considering they didn't make it to the major qualifiers, just kind of a bummer on that front.
Yeah, I mean, they can keep winning your cups, though. I mean, what is a RMR qualifier to a Mythic Cup?
Damn right.
I mean, honestly, what is more important? You know the deal. Okay, so we can kind of wrap this up. Astralis didn't play well at all. That's good. I am continuing to love to see Astralis fail miserably.
Final note. Fuck it. Fuck Astralis.
Every event. It's been really cool. I hope they can keep that up, continue losing. I hope they take last place at Blast so that they are not on stage and that the final crowd shot continues to be miserable. Actually thought, for all the memeing that went on and you piping the crowd noise in during the final, that the grand final crowd, even without Furia, was actually okay. I thought it was okay. Obviously, there weren't as many people there, nearly as much for the Furia semifinal match, but I don't think it was as bad as last year. It did seem like there were more people there for a neutral game, and that
they clearly were, right? Because Furia wasn't there, so everybody that showed up today was there to see the finals, you know. And I'm cutting you off a little bit, but yeah, like the top floor like was completely empty basically, which, you know, when Fury was playing yesterday, it wasn't. But from that point forward, all the way down, it was pretty much packed out, which was good to see. I mean, yeah, I'll let you kind of continue on, but I just kind of wanted to add that.
I know people are there's a lot of people that don't like the Brazilian events for a variety of different reasons. And there are definitely people out there that don't feel like Rio deserves to be a staple for IEM's circuit and schedule. But the Brazilian scene, as we know, is incredibly strong. The viewership is always great. When their teams are playing, they do pack out the stadium, and they are louder than pretty much every other community out there when it comes to a crowd atmosphere. And obviously,
Nico still said Dallas best crowd. I said it. Nico said it. Okay. He said it. Dallas best crowd, dude.
Yep.
Anyway, sorry. He said better than Majors, bro. He did. He literally did.
That is insane. That is literally insane. Of course, Nico would say that about Majors, though. Not too surprising about that. IEM is making money with Rio. I personally think that Rio should be a yearly staple. It should not move from Brazil. Brazil should have one of the big events every single year. I don't think it would be a smart move to take it out of Rio.
No, I don't think they will. And I think you're right. I mean, I think at the end of the day, I kind of said it while I was co-streaming, like, if it was bad for business, ESL wouldn't be there. I mean, at the end of the day, like, that is... Like they wouldn't be hosting an event there continuously if they weren't getting supporters seeing some sort of gain from it in some meaningful way. I do think that I think there's very valid criticism of crowds at different times. I think this final crowd today was less. It was quieter. I also think that the setup that they're using, I still stand by the fact that this is the quietest event I've ever heard. In general, even when Fury was playing, I could tell that there was a lot of noise happening, but the audio that ESL was running for this event made it feel like I just had earmuffs on. And my guess is I think this is the only event where they don't have the English casters playing through the arena.
Yes,
and I
believe so too.
And they have their own casters in Portuguese, speaking Portuguese, obviously, to everybody in the arena. And I think that they're trying not to like basically, you know, mix the shit out of it and then blow up our brains with what the hell's going on and what we're listening to on the stream. But I also think that really leads to a very muted experience where like there's no connection watching on stream really to the crowd because of how muffled it is. You can't hear anything. You can barely hear like any noise coming from the stream, which is, yeah, I mean, even when Fury was playing, it felt very muffled. you could tell there was like a lot of noise, but yeah, it just felt like earmuffs the whole time. And I'm suspecting it has something to do with their audio setup for how they're doing the casters for Rio, and that would be my guess. I think it was better. I couldn't honestly remember Rio from last year, the crowd. I don't know if I actually ended up co-streaming it. But it did seem like it was better than the Rio before that, when the crowd wasn't there, because the crowd wasn't there for the finals at all. They were outside at a festival.
Yeah, it's true. And I think your point about other events not having English speakers, the only other event and country that I believe does that is France, because it is mandated that inside the arena, like the Blast Paris Major was French inside the arena.
I think it was English, though. I think it actually was English. I could be wrong.
Really? I thought it was mandated by the country.
No, you're right. Everybody was talking about this, but I think I'd have to go back and look. But I think, anybody remember? Hey, Twitch chat, this is scuffed anyway. Anybody remember? I think they did play English in the crowd like the whole time. Or Blast did a much better job of cutting away, I think. Yeah, it was English. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're remembering it partially correct. Like, that is a thing, and I think it was a big contention and worry. Because majors especially are international audiences, people travel. It's not, even if it is in France and Vitality will have the most fans, it's kind of considered an international event rather than like a Rio, right?
Yeah,
I think they have to be in English, for example. Like, I don't think, well, that's not true. That's not going to be true for Shanghai, I don't think. But whatever, you get my point.
Yeah, that would be the other exception. I fully expect the Chinese event to be fully in Mandarin in the arena. I mean, PGL is doing a remote broadcast anyway. From what I understand, none of the casters or talent are going to be on site.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're remembering.
They're going to be in Romania. Yeah. It's going to be an in studio event.
Yeah.
Does that be weird? Yeah. Okay, well, that's all from me. The only other thing I wanted to mention, which I forgot to say earlier, I did inquire to a source within Navi regarding the no handshake with Virtus Pro. The source did confirm to me that they don't do handshake with especially Virtus Pro as a Russian team due to Russia's war with Ukraine. However, it had nothing to do with Electronic. And I did see a lot of speculation and conversation around Electronic leaving the team and how maybe some stuff with him and Blade could have affected that. But from what I was told, it has nothing to do with Electronic or anything personal with him.
Yeah, I think the players are pretty actually friendly with one another. I think it's just one of those things.
Yeah, so just some good old political conflict. no personal issues.
You're really trying to end with that one, huh? You're like, oh, let's close this one out.
I meant to mention this at the beginning when we were talking about Navi, but it just slipped my mind. I saw a lot of people like blaming Electronic, but from what I was told, nothing to do with him. I didn't
see any of that, but no, I think it's just purely organizational type stuff. Who used to own VP, the whole who still technically owns it. There's a bunch of weird things going on over there where, yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with player to player.
So do we have a break now? How long until the next
17 days, I think.
Wow. I actually can't believe it.
Not good.
I'm used to one gigantic tournament every single week, and then a 2-day break following the next event. I hope the quality maybe goes up a little bit. I mean, we had Steel on last week, and he just wouldn't shut the fuck up about how he feels that all the teams are playing badly. He did a little bit about this on the broadcast desk.
Do you think Steel was in shambles when they played the clip where MOUZ intentionally missed the window smoke? Steel was literally talking about it on the desk, and then they played the clip during the game of him that he told him to miss the smoke on purpose. Oh no, you're dying, but yeah. I just can't imagine. Steel was in shambles. But yeah, let's wrap it up. Let's wrap it up, you Weedy.
I do feel him. I hope that the bit of a break allows teams to get more practice in, and maybe the quality will increase as we end the year.
Yeah, hopefully for the major, that'd be best case scenario.
Yeah. All right. That's good. Good for me. I really just want to, at the end, again, everyone who is in chat and who's reading the comments on YouTube, please give suggestions for the name of this show.
Yeah, actually.
You can DM me on Twitter.
Keep it CS related. Try to keep it CS related. That's what I'd say. And
CS
also
related.
let me know if you like tactical timeout or freeze time. Those are ones that I kind of thought of. I don't know.
Okay.
I thought they were all right. So if you guys let me know in the comments or wherever if you think those are decent.
Yeah, don't mention Flom's cock in the title.
Pink Eye podcast? That's one. You like that one?
That I don't like that one. Actually.
Why not, Slasher? Why don't you?
I no reason at all. Nothing potentially personal about that one. Thanks, Flom.
Oh shit! All right. I'll let you guys get out of here. I'm gonna get out of here. I'm trying to get out of here and go for a walk and touch grass. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Slasher, thanks for
I'm gonna watch my next game.
This one, even though I delayed this a little bit. Slasher's always trying to come on and yap with me and talk with you guys. So shout out Slasher for staying on top of it. And yeah, we'll see you guys for the next one.